Hello and welcome to my presentation on metal alloys, their uses and properties, everything about metal and alloys. So, what are metals? Metals have been extensively used by man since the beginning of time. The use of metal is directly linked to its particular properties, especially its physical properties. Metals are used because they are strong and last a relatively long time. They are also shiny, malleable, ductile, and have a very high density, and can conduct electricity and heat. All these properties make metal very versatile and compatible to do multiple tasks and purposes. Metals can also be combined or mixed with other metals to make something known as alloys, which we will explain further in the video. What are some uses of metals? We will mainly be looking at the uses of three metals: aluminum, lead, and iron. Aluminum is a very useful metal because it has a thin layer of aluminum oxide on its surface. This layer adheres to metals and makes it very resistant to corrosion. Because of this ability, aluminum is often used to produce windows and windows frame, and also used to produce soda cans and food storage containers. Aluminum also proves to be a good conductor of heat, which makes it useful for saucepans and such. Aluminum foil is often used for cooking since it's protected by a thin layer we mentioned before. It is a highly reflective surface that allows it to reflect heat back to the food, keeping it warmer for longer. But one weakness of aluminum is that it's not the strongest metal, which is why people often alloy it with other metals. As for the next two metals, my group member Cayenne will be explaining lead and iron in further details. Cayenne, take it away.
Lead, one of the first materials to ever be discovered. Lead has been used for several thousand years. The largest use of lead today is inside of acid batteries because it is highly resistant to corrosion and conducts electricity. The main use of lead today is to recharge batteries and produce electricity because it is very susceptible to electric charge. Another important fact about lead is that radiation shield around X-ray equipment, which can be very important because X-ray equipment can emit a very powerful, very toxic radiation field which can damage your skin, and lead can protect you from such damage. Iron, one of the most widely used metals of today because of its high abundance and low cost and because of its strength. Pure iron is quite soft and is usually hardened by allowing it with carbon to form pure steel. Usually, iron is used to make structures, which today, if you are going to your local community or your cities, most of the buildings that you will be seeing is made by iron. And the reason why iron is such a used material when it comes to building structures and foundations is because of its highly flexible nature. Iron can be used for a multitude of things when it comes to construction, like making posts, making beams, and can also be used to make statues to a structural form for the statue because it can be shaped in appearance.
So, you may be wondering by now, what are alloys? To put it in a simple term, alloys are more than one metal that is combined to produce a mixture of metals. Sometimes a non-metal may also be added. Alloys are usually harder, stronger, and more resistant to corrosion than other metals. To make an alloy, metals are heated, mixed thoroughly, and cooled so that they solidify again. My group member Kyle will be explaining aluminum alloys and lead in further detail.
Lead alloys and their uses. Lead is often mixed with other metals such as tin, antimony, or copper to create alloys with improved properties. One of the most common lead alloys is lead solder. Lead solder composition and properties. Lead solder is typically made up of 60% lead and 40% tin. By alloying lead with tin, the resulting solder has a lower melting point than pure lead and increased hardness and strength. Uses of lead solder. Lead solder is primarily used to join metallic items together. The process involves melting the solder so it flows into the joints between the items, then cooling and solidifying, which creates a strong bond between the metals. Since the melting point of lead solder is lower than of the metals being joined, it can be used effectively without damaging the materials. This makes it ideal for applications in electronics, plumbing, and metalworks.
Iron alloys. The building industry makes intensive use of iron, usually in the form of steel. Steel is an alloy of iron with carbon or various other metals. There are quite a few different types of steel. Steel formed by alloying iron with carbon are known as carbon steel. Generally, the amount of carbon in the carbon steel varies between 0.1 and 0.1 to 0.15%. As the carbon content increases, the steel becomes harder but less malleable and ductile, and therefore becomes more brittle and harder to weld.
There are many steel alloys, too much to explain in fact, so to no longer drag on this video, I've made a short presentation of all iron alloys. That is the end of our presentation. I hope you enjoyed it.